Focus. Ideate. Innovate. Enable.
Hello and welcome to Forbes India presents Ultimate 120 in association with Oppo. I'm Mridu Bhandari. On the show today, we are talking about innovation in the times of a pandemic. Undoubtedly, the COVID-19 pandemic has thrown unprecedented challenges to businesses across the world, across sectors and scale. But times have been particularly hard for startups. However, many of them have risen to the occasion, have pivoted in the products and services that they offer, and have actually been aiding the war on COVID-19 in a big way. So I have with me some innovators and entrepreneurs today. Let me welcome them on the show. Kaushik Mudda, co-founder and CEO of Ethereal Machines. Akshay Singhal, co-founder and CEO of Log9 Materials. And Shardul Seth, co-founder and CEO of AgroStar. Welcome, gentlemen. Thanks very much for joining us here today. And first up, kudos to all of you for pivoting off and really recognizing the market needs in these times of a pandemic and really accelerating innovation in each of your organizations. Let me begin with you, Kaushik. You're into the business of manufacturing affordable CNC routers and 3D printing machines. During the pandemic, you've pivoted to 3D printing of ventilator splitters. First up, tell us how this innovation is helping COVID-19 patients and what really made you pivot at this point in time.
So we're a deep tech startup that has been concentrating on making CNC machines affordable across sectors. What we wanted to do with this particular project is that when we realized that all the deep tech expertise that we've accumulated over the years can be put of some good use for the COVID-19 situation and help India breathe, we just dived at the opportunity. We came across a tweet by one of the doctors by the name of Dr. Sonal Asthana, whose team we've worked with very closely to create these splitters. So what we end up doing with the splitters is basically we are multiplying the capacity of every single existing ventilator across the country. So one ventilator being used for two patients. I wouldn't necessarily say we pivoted from our core business, because what we're doing with this project is that pro bono, we're distributing splitters across the country, equipping every single hospital across the country, and ensuring that as a last resort scenario, in the case that your medical infrastructure gets overburdened, only then go ahead and use the splitters so that you don't have to pick and choose between patients and one person is deprived of access to a ventilator.
Right. Okay. And Akshay, your venture, Log9 Materials, is into nanotechnology. You specialize in graphene. So first up, tell us, what do these innovations do? Where do you apply them? And then tell us about your latest innovation, the CoronaOven. What is that all about?
Over time, what has happened is while we were building our expertise and products based on graphene, we were lucky to have a team which was very, I would say, proficient in terms of prototyping, in terms of new product design, and taking those to manufacturing. And that kind of expertise in the team and that kind of eagerness and quick to market kind of culture in Log9 has helped us launch this CoronaOven, which is a UV disinfection technology and contains a whole range of products, multiple variants which can be used to sanitize various objects, including mask and PPE and stuff like that.
Let me also bring in Shardul at this point. Shardul, yours is an agri-tech startup that helps farmers tackle crop-related problems. During COVID-19, you've tied up with Bayer and you've started home delivery of agricultural inputs like seeds and pesticides. How has that whole operation fared? What's the demand been like? And how else have you been innovating during the pandemic?
Hi, no, thank you for having me here. Absolutely crazy times, and we've I think lots of innovation across the board. What we basically do is we provide a whole range of agri solutions to farmers. We also make these products available and delivered to their doorstep. So in terms of innovation, we've had to first innovate in terms of getting those products, physically moved from one location to their doorstep. And obviously you can imagine a big challenge during lockdown. So I think there was a lot of effort that the team has put in to make that happen. The second one, and probably another important one, was how do we continue to deliver voice services and talking to our farmers, right? How do we continue to give them those solutions on phones, because our teams were not able to work from on-premise locations, and to set up an entire voice network, by through our agents who are working from their homes. I think there has been massive amount of innovation happening there. The third one I would also like to add on is, in the same time, how do we enable and make it meaningful for farmers to shift from a voice or a call center support focused model to a more of a mobile based model, and the advantages that they would be able to see through that. I think those have been probably some of the big three things that we worked on.
Right, great, wonderful to hear that. Kaushik, I want to ask you, while at this point you are seeing significant demand for your product, the ventilator splitter, but because of the nature of the pandemic we are in, but in the long term, how do you see demand shaping up? And in the current scenario, what's been your biggest challenge in really rising to the occasion and meeting this whole demand scenario?
So let's take your second question first, right? What are the challenges we face? Because when we started working on this project, it was literally the first day after the lockdown was announced, which is around March 24th, March 23rd, March 24th. What happened was we had to start going to the hospitals, we had to start going to our vendors, we had to come back to our office. So for our initial set of trials, we were using, because we make our own machines, right? So we were utilizing our own machines for the first prototypes. We were going through several steps and iterations. We would just keep hitting the roads, with the risk of, either being stopped for this, either, vehicles were being confiscated, and not just me and my co-founder, a couple of my team members as well. So a couple of those risks were, was something that we were taking. And also, of course, going to the hospital means there are high chances you're being exposed to the virus. And some of us are staying back with the family. So all of that was there. But thankfully, I think Niti Aayog and Invest India really helped us out with those things. Back to your first question, where you're talking about, how we see the demand changing. So going forward, I personally really hope that the demand for the ventilator splitters just vanishes. I don't want to supply any of these anymore. I hope the fatality rate just goes down and nobody has to use this. But where I see a shift happening is that, in this process, there are a lot of doctors who've approached us with different innovative solutions in their mind, which they've not really been able to implement because they've not found the right channels, they've not found the right partners who are willing to experiment it out with them. Or also the vice versa case where startups did not know how to approach on-field, on-ground critical care doctors who actually know what's happening. So I think there will be a paradigm shift when it comes to medical devices specifically.
Akshay, you are planning to roll out several variants of the CoronaOven, which is a sanitization chamber of sorts, that you've created in order to avoid letting the virus, be communicated through surfaces. So, are you still envisaging demand for the CoronaOven and its variants beyond the pandemic, as health and hygiene are bound to become top priorities for citizens? What will the key driving factors of demand be for you in the post-pandemic situation?
So definitely, we are foreseeing demand even in the post-pandemic scenario because, as you mentioned, there will be a behavioral shift, and the way we have started to use RO systems in our houses for clean water. I think basic sanitization and increase in our interest of hygiene would happen post-pandemic. Also, at the same time, there are various specific use cases that have come our way, wherein we realize that CoronaOven or similar UV disinfection technologies are very relevant, and most of them actually cater to the hospital needs itself, wherein hospitals have various kind of sanitization requirements, and if you have a proper way to log those sanitization to basically make sure that you have the right kind of device, right kind of structure, then it can be really helpful.
Right. Okay. While we are talking about these changing consumer preferences and tastes, Shardul, in case of farmers moving to online ordering and home delivery of agricultural inputs, again, that's a behavioral shift that one would think could be permanent if the quality of products and the pricing of products remains the same as what they're able to get at their local vendors. What else are you seeing shifting in terms of demand, in terms of, behavior as far as the farmer community is concerned, and how are you gearing up for that?
So I think the first thing, what I was saying is that the first thing that I see changing dramatically is trust. at least for us, because trust takes years, and especially for that segment of the society, they have been cheated in the past. A lot of wrong things have happened. When they saw that startups and companies like ours are delivering and keeping up to our value proposition even in a time like this, that trust has accelerated significantly. Convenience is something that they have realized, and they've seen the importance of it. So I think that is obviously an add-on. And I think those two combined, we see it as a permanent shift. We see farmers who were very, in the earlier days, were very, very happy and willing to go to a nearby market, are now saying that, well, why should I do that if I can get this, the service and the product delivered to my doorstep, either through a phone conversation or through the app. And we don't see that going back.
All right, time for a quick break right now. But on the other side, we'll talk about collaboration and the startup ecosystem in the new normal. Stay with us. back to Forbes India Presents Ultimate 120 in association with Oppo. On the show today, we are talking about innovation in the times of a pandemic, and I'm in conversation with three young entrepreneurs whose innovations have actually been solving a lot of problems during COVID-19. But these are unprecedented times for any business. So, Akshay, this pandemic is perhaps the biggest test that any startup has faced till date. In fact, an ASCOM survey recently said that 70% of startups have less than 3 months of cash runway. And if it really weren't for the pivots that you all have made, how tough were these times really?
Yes, so I think many startups are in that situation wherein the runway is short, and then they're looking for, and even I have seen in my network signed term sheets being backed out and rounds not closing up, and then the startups not able to get more capital to stay afloat. So those kind of things have been happening, and they will happen more as this pandemic prolongs and goes forward. And also, definitely, there's a huge shift in consumer demand, and many kind of, I would say, good to have offerings have died down.
Shardul, we are in a global recession at this point in time. As far as cash flows are concerned, as far as funding is concerned, access to capital is concerned, how tough is this period really for startups? And is there a significant shift or is there a need for a significant shift in terms of business modeling at this point in time?
As Akshay mentioned, I think it is the toughest time, that we've seen. There's no question about it. We've been, in this journey for a good 10 years. We've seen demonetization. We've seen the whole GST change. Nothing compares to what we are going through now. But I think, as Akshay said, startups that will, live through this and will be, COVID strengthened, I would say, or survivors, there is exciting, opportunities ahead. So there's no question about that. In terms of changes, young startups, including us, I mean, everybody has to be super efficient in capital, do everything possible to extend the runway, which is what, most startups have done. And what I'm seeing optimism that compared to, what my peers and friends in the startup ecosystem talking in April versus where a lot of folks are today. Amazing amount of innovation that has happened, amazing amount of cost savings that have happened. Runways have been extended by, over 2 times. So I think there is innovation happening across the board and across the segments in startups.
Right. Okay. And at this point in time, there is also a strong support for manufacturing in India and for made in India products, driven particularly by the Prime Minister's clarion call for becoming self-reliant or Atmanirbhar, as he put it. Kaushik, has this whole sentiment helped a brand like yours? Do you think this whole Make in India, Made in India sentiment is going to help, grassroots level startups?
So on a day-to-day basis, I interact with a ton of MSMEs. All my clients are in the micro, small, and medium enterprise segments. They're not necessarily large industries. And all of them are really pumped up. They're expecting a lot of benefits in the terms of cheaper loans. They are quite positive about the outlook, say, maybe not immediately, but 3 months from now. They know that a lot of their capex might get subsidized. And they're very happy with that a lot of age-old rules and red tapes are now just being cut across the board. They have a lot of people are very cognitive of the fact that the shift in manufacturing, which is occurring across the world, India is in a good position to go ahead and capture it. And I think the Prime Minister's reinforced messages time and again, along with the Finance Minister's messages, is only going to help further that cause. And it is very important for us to move towards an Atmanirbhar Bharat when you look at it from a manufacturing perspective, and its in turn is definitely looking very positive on ethereal machines as well as a direct outcome.
Right. So has there been significant government support for startups like yours at this point in time, especially through the pandemic, as far as scaling up the innovation is concerned or funding promising innovations is concerned? How quickly has the government responded, and what has the help been like?
So I, for one, have been in consistent touch with folks from Invest India and Niti Aayog. And both of them have been extremely supportive, be it, in the initial days, whether we had to get a DCGI clarification, whether we had to get some permit. We've received an immense amount of help from Make in India, folks at Make in India, Niti Aayog, and Invest India.
Right, so that's great to hear. And in fact, collaboration is critical to come out of any crisis, more so a great humanitarian crisis like this one. Akshay, give me a sense of what is the sort of collaboration that you've all been doing within the startup ecosystem, helping each other? Have you been partnering with each other? And even, with the government, with academic institutions? Kaushik just gave me some examples. Akshay, can I ask you to weigh in as well?
Yeah, so actually, like Kaushik said, I think Niti Aayog and Invest India and Startup India were quite helpful with us as well. So that has definitely happened. Also, I would like to mention that we have collaborated in past also, but especially during these COVID times, we have collaborated with Indian Institute of Science Bangalore very intensively and conducted various tests on our CoronaOven over there and optimized the product, and further more tests are happening. And as we go for more variants, those are being also tested and optimized at ISC. So I think collaboration with the Institute of Science has been quite paramount. And at the same time, CSIR labs have been quite supportive in terms of validating our products and helping us take to the market.
Shardul, if I can ask you to add on to that.
So I think for us, we saw a superb collaboration over the last 4 months. More than what we've done, since inception. We've got licenses, we've got approvals to, have our fleets running, to keep our fulfillment centers on, to have our delivery partners deliver products, through the local departments, through agri departments, through local administration. And all we had to say was that, well, look, we're taking care of the farmer, and without having to run pillar to post, we've been able to get that not just in one state, but across about 5 states. So especially Maharashtra, Gujarat, Rajasthan have been super proactive and helpful. I couldn't have asked for more. Without that support, we would not have been able to get our operations up and running. We would not have been able to to service the farmers in the speed that we've been able to.
As we close this conversation, I'm going to come to each one of you. You've really risen to the occasion during this pandemic. You've worked overtime to offer solutions at the grassroots level. It's been far from easy, I'm sure. So what is that big one innovation mantra that you'd like to leave the viewers with? Shardul, if we can start with you.
I think for us, innovation, one big mantra would be to, stay very close to your customer, to listen to their need, and to continue to deliver on that, unwavering, and whatever it takes, how much ever longer it takes, not to get distracted by, various other external elements and external things going on. Just staying very true and very close to the customer to continue to service their need. I think that would be the biggest thing for us.
Okay. Akshay, what about you? Your big innovation mantra?
I think constant innovation is very important to basically face and overcome any challenge, especially in down cycles like this, and when everybody is facing challenges at home, at business, with family. Constantly innovating for yourself, constantly innovating for the business, and constantly innovating for the country is very important to basically bear any kind of challenges that comes your way.
All right. And Kaushik, what about you? Big innovation mantra?
My innovation mantra is something which is a quote from FDR. The test of our progress is not whether we add to those who already have abundance, but what we do for those who have little. That's something that has been driving all of us at Ethereal through times.
Thank you very much, gentlemen, for being with us here today and sharing your ideas as well as your innovations with us. More power to all three of you as we continue to live with the virus. I'm sure each of your innovations is going to have significant impact on a large number of people. Thanks very much for joining us here today. Until next time, it's goodbye.
Focus, ideate, innovate, enable.